NightOutHipHop.com.
Yeah, holy smokes, I'm no joke out the bullpen. Bringing nothing but heat, leave you hanging like clothespins. He's a beast when he goes in, ice cold frozen. The first round draft pick, number one chosen. Drop bombs, explosion, self-promotion. And I keep shit moving like a flanker in motion. I'm the number one spokesman, it's my devotion. That I'm dedicated to the rhyme is my own notion. Brown water's the potion, it put hair on your chest. Or you can put one in the air and it'll put you to rest. Sweet dreams, I'm about to fade. I got my mind on my money and I'm dreaming about getting this all paid. Mr. Go-Getter, Mr. Assertive, Mr. Initiative, Mr. Results, man, I'm all about my business, kid. Damn.
Results and business on a suddenly not so casual Thursday evening in October. It is October 26, 2023. It is Thursday Night Football, Week 8 NFL, Week 9 college. A little Circa Millions, a little knowledge for college. 3 plays dropping. The Shark and the Gun right here live on Sharky Waters Nation, X and YouTube. If you're on X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it, come on over to YouTube, join the chat, drop your plays. We'll interact with you guys in here. Guns Picks, what's going on, brother?
Man, feeling good, feeling great. We are on the precipice of another good NFL and college football weekend. We're not only going to bring you NFL picks tonight, we're going to bring you 2 college football picks and an alignment on one of those college picks as well. And we'll also give you a couple of takes on the total tonight. And it's going to be a beautiful night. I love Thursday night football. It feels like the start of the weekend, but not quite. But I'm ready to go. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. Starting in college, first play, ACC football. Big time stuff here. Vatek at home. The intro song is going to be lit. The Syracuse Orangemen imminently overwhelmed in the gun with the first official of the broadcast.
Night game in Blacksburg. Enter Sandman playing doom, 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 doom. And I love Virginia Tech in this spot, especially at home. Wild crowd tonight. Hokies stand up. Let's talk about these 2 teams. Where are they coming from? And what is going on with this game here? Now, Virginia Tech coming off a bye week, 3-4 straight up, 4-3 against the spread so far this season. Their last game at home was versus the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. They won that game 30-13, dominating in the net yardage in that one with plus 200 net yards in that game. Absolute domination from the Hokies. Now you have the Cuse coming off a bye week as well. They've lost 3 straight versus ACC opponents, Clemson, UNC, and Florida State. Strong opponents, I'll give you that. But dominated in each of those games in the net yardage and in the points. But you got to look at Cuse, has underperformed on the road. They have a minus 18-point differential, minus 215 net yard average in their road games this season. They have had 3 true road games versus Purdue. Did win that one 35-20. Lost to UNC 40-17. Florida State 41-3. Those are their 3 road games this season. Now you got to look at Virginia Tech. Has done well at home this season. They are 3-0 straight up in those spots with a plus 11-point differential, plus 72 net yard average. And those games were versus Old Dominion, Pitt, and Wake Forest. Now, what does Virginia Tech do well? They love to run the ball. They have a dual threat quarterback in Kyron Drones, and I can't even say the guy's first name, but I'll say Tootin is the last name of this guy. I think it's Bay Shul Tootin. I might be having the pronunciation wrong there, but we will move forward. They want to establish a run and complement their passing game. Drones throws 7 yards per attempt with 6 touchdowns, 1 INT this season. So he doesn't make mistakes, but he doesn't throw a lot of passes either. He'd rather just use his foot and his ability to mobilize and get down the field. Now you got to look at Cuse on this one. They do give up yards in the run game. They give up 4.1 yards per carry on the road to their opponents and 4.4 yards per carry versus conference opponents. So those are high totals there, and you can get into that defense pretty well. They do have a common opponent on this one, Florida State. They did both of these teams did play this team already. With Virginia Tech lost to them 39-17. They had a minus 139 net yard average, minus 1 turnover ratio. Bad, right? So they got dominated. But look at what happened to Syracuse. Syracuse played them in the same situation, 41-3, minus 274 net yards in that game with a minus 2 turnover ratio. So that Syracuse got dominated highly more than Virginia Tech did. Also, you got to look at Cuse, 1-4 against the spread as an away dog dating back to 2022. Then you have Virginia Tech 3-1 against the spread at home this season. So Virginia Tech at home at night. The place will be rocking. Sandman will be rocking. A tough environment to play in. Cuse underperforms on the road, where Virginia Tech only performs well at home this season. So the split is right. We're taking them at a low number here at -2.5. The number is up to -3. You could still take it at -3. So give me Virginia Tech -2.5, -3, 2-unit special.
Speaking of big time football on a suddenly not so casual Thursday evening, we're going to Statesboro. That is Georgia, and we're going to the home locker room. And we're taking Georgia Southern here. Top play, collaboration play, the Shark and the Gun, -1, 1-unit official. First topic of conversation when it comes to Georgia Southern, pattern recognition. And if you go down their calendar, you notice they pretty much do the exact same thing in every single spot, home, road, and psychologically speaking. Go to their road environment. They are 0-2 as a road dog at their hardest opponents, at Wisconsin and at James Madison. They are 1-0 as a road favorite out of conference in the MAC at Ball State. But come home in Statesboro, 4-0 straight up, 3-1 ATS. Very impressive stuff. Covered against the Citadel. Forget that as being important. But very, very importantly, 2 specific conference revenge games, which we have backed them already this year. One in week 2 against UAB, having taken a 14-point road loss last year, came home, hammered them 49-35. Slightly later on in week 5, had taken a loss at Coastal Carolina last year, came home, same dynamic, hammered them 38-28. Last week was their only non-cover at home in conference. It was against ULM. Crucial point on that, however, they were up in that game 31-7 and took their foot off the gas late to not cover the game spread. You ask yourself, why? Well, here's why. That was Saturday. This is Thursday night. Short week, look ahead, conserve energy to their biggest game of the season. Another revenge game in conference. Took a loss last year, 41-33 on the road. A very competitive game. Quarterback Kyle Van Treese, 4 interceptions, 5 turnovers overall on the road. This is where they turn up. Final point on the game before I throw it to the gun. We backed Georgia State in the over market in the middle of the summer. We said they're going to go over 5.5. Guess what? They already did. 6-1. So the law of averages by Vegas Sportsbooks is telling you this team might be capped now that they've hit their 6. And I think they are capped in this environment. Gritty win last Saturday night at the University of Louisiana, otherwise known as ULL. I still like to call them that, the Raging Cajuns. Stay on the road, back to back. This is where it will be a full turn-up spot. Beautiful October 26th, Thursday evening. Georgia Southern in Statesboro, -1, 1-unit official. Guns picks, alignment of the highest quality.
I know this is an in-state quote-unquote rivalry. I don't know if it's even a rivalry, but I think this is a great spot to be jumping on Georgia Southern, like you said, and I'm completely aligned with you on this one. I did make it a 2.5-unit special for a reason, and let me tell you why. Listen, we know where these teams came from. It's like you have 5-2 against the spread with Georgia State, and you have 4-3 against the spread with Georgia Southern. 5-2 straight up for Georgia Southern, 6-1 straight up for Georgia State. But I question Georgia State. Have they been battle tested all season? The best team that they played all season is Troy, and Troy is ranked 48th in the country currently as far as power rankings is concerned. They lost to them 28-7 at home with a -112 net yard average in that game with -2 turnover ratio. So when the test came, they faltered. When you look at Georgia Southern, they've been battle tested. It resulted in 2 of their losses this season at Wisconsin and at JMU. But let's look at the outcomes of that game. So we go to Wisconsin, 35-14. They had +4 net yards in that game. So they actually won the net yardage battle versus Wisconsin. But they had -6 turnover ratio in that game. And 4 of those turnovers resulted in 4 Wisconsin touchdowns. They also had 6 possessions inside field goal range that resulted in a missed field goal and 4 INTs and a fumble. So a lot of outliers in there, a lot of turnovers. It's like if they can maintain and hold on to the ball and take care of the football, Georgia Southern should win this game easily. Now you look at the JMU game, similar spot situation. This one, they lost the game 41-13, but they only lost the net yardage battle by minus 16 net yards. They had a -3 turnover ratio in that game. One of their turnovers resulted in a JMU TD. They had 2 scoring drives that ended in interceptions in that one as well. This was a big motivational game for JMU, though. You had to look at the situation. There's a reason why we took JMU. Actually, I had JMU as a 2.5 unit special on that one for a reason, because JMU took a receipt. They cashed that receipt on Georgia Southern and beat the salt piss out of them, but the net yardage didn't really predicate on that one. But this is a triple revenge spot for Georgia Southern as well. They lost the game last year to Georgia State, 41-33 as 2.5-point road dogs. Now you've seen the line flip to the other side, being Georgia Southern the favorite. Georgia State may have a little bit of a look ahead on this one. I kind of put this into the notes. This is the second leg of a back-to-back road trip, and they got JMU next week at home and a big revenge spot for them. So maybe it's a good time if Georgia State does lose this game and lose it handily. Maybe it's a time to be jumping on Georgia State next week versus JMU. Even though I love JMU, I think that might be a flat spot for them. Also, Georgia Southern 5-1 against the spread as a home favorite dating back to 2022. Georgia Southern should be ready for this one. Big revenge spot versus them. In-state rival, where they excel. Georgia State running a little bit too hot for me. Personally, I think their schedule is a little bit weak compared to what Georgia Southern has faced all season. I think it's a good spot to be jumping on Georgia Southern. I got it at 1.5. I know it's sitting at -1 right now. Go take it right now. It's 2.5 units special for me. Give me Georgia Southern all night long.
One final point that I failed to mention. The gun touched on it, but I do want to make this point. Psychologically speaking, Georgia State this year has had 3 specific games where they lost last year and they were in the revenge element. They are 3-0 in those spots. Mm-hmm. They did actually lose last year to Charlotte incomprehensibly. Charlotte was horrendous last year, but they came back this year 41-25. The gun had that officially. Then they went into Coastal. Coastal beat them last year, and they beat Coastal this year with authority 30-17. Most recently, they lost to Marshall last year, hammered Marshall this year 41-24. This is the first time all year for Georgia State the other team is in the revenge spot. All boxes checked. We love this spot. -1, -1.5 now.
These two teams keep receipts, and they cash the receipts. At least this year, we're undefeated on those. So take the receipt cash in, and I think Georgia State's on another revenge spot with JMU next week. So make note of that.
Absolutely, and it's just another layer of it. It adds a bit of a look ahead element to the whole situation. Taking a breath, 13.5 minutes of college, knowledge for college tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. But big-time NFL football tonight. Orchard Park, New York, 8:15 p.m. Highmark Stadium. Josh Allen and the boys back at home off yet another lackluster performance. How many weeks in a row can this team lay an egg? I certainly do not know. However, the gun officially on the home team.
Yeah, I got this line last night, so I feel bad for you guys. I got it at -8.5. That's going to be the official play. However, this line is sitting at -10. I had this game ending at a Buffalo victory at 10-14, and I still think that line is good, even if it's still at 10. After 10.5, we might as well just leave it alone. But let's talk about this game for a second. You got Tampa coming off of back-to-back losses versus Detroit and Atlanta at home. And losing it in dramatic fashion, last-second field goal to Atlanta, 16-13, with a -72 net yards in that game. Buffalo coming off a divisional loss last week versus New England, and a real bad letdown spot for them, 29-25, -25 net yards for that game with a -1 turnover ratio. This is Tampa's first game versus an AFC opponent this season. They played all NFC opponents so far. If you actually go back into the history of how they perform versus AFC opponents, they're 3-7 ATS versus the AFC dating back to 2021, and they're 0-5 against the spread dating back to last year versus the AFC, losing by an average of 9.4 points per game. You got to look at Tampa too. Tampa has been very one-dimensional on the offensive side, which is a problem for them. They're terrible at running the football. They average 3.1 yards per carry on the ground, which is ranked 31st in the league. Passing the ball, they're not so great at that either. They only average 6.6 yards per attempt, and they're ranked 23rd in the league at that. So the offense really hasn't done anything for them. That helps because Buffalo's defense has kind of struggled with all the injuries that have happened with the team as far as the secondary is concerned, and a lot of key players in that element. So Buffalo's defense does struggle stopping the run. They have a 5.2 yards per carry given up. They're ranked 31st in the league at that. They're not great versus the pass. They give up 6.6 yards per attempt. And at ranked 19th in the league. So their strength really is getting to the quarterback and sacking the quarterback because they're one of the best at doing that. They have a 10.5% sack rate this season, ranked second in the league at sacking the quarterback. So I think with Baker Mayfield back there, you put some pressure on him. You may make him, he may probably will make mistakes tonight on that one. Now you got to look at Buffalo. They play their best ball at home. They have a plus 20-point differential at home this season, which is ranked fourth largest home margin of victory in the NFL. Buffalo also coming off a loss. You have to fade the other team. Buffalo plays very well off a loss, just like we talked about a couple weeks ago with Dallas. Dallas, we said the same thing about them. They're a play on team off a loss. Since 2021, they're 6-3-2 against the spread after a loss with the average margin of victory at 14.1 points per game. So don't get deterred by the 3-2 pushes on this one. They've had some big spreads in their history. So that is what's predicating a lot of this stuff. To me, you're getting kind of a short line with Buffalo tonight. And when they lose, they come back strong historically, even though they've been struggling the past couple of weeks. Only other team that has double-digit margin of victories after a loss since 2021, I just mentioned them, the Dallas Cowboys. So these two teams are the best teams coming off a loss dating back to 2021. So in essence, really, I'm looking at this as a Buffalo bounce back. They're coming off a divisional road loss, now back home in a situation where they typically demolish teams, and they're playing a Tampa squad on a short week and historically terrible versus AFC opponents the past 2 seasons. So that is the reason why I think it's important. We need to be taking the Bills or pass on this one. The line is getting a little bit out of control. So hopefully, if you can still get a -10, I still think that is a good line there. But I got it at -8.5. That is the number I'm rolling with this one. So give me Buffalo here, -8.5, 2-unit special.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And the guy and I had discussed this yesterday, and I said I lean towards Buffalo as well. And, I think one of the things that I want to go a little more specifically here, where it becomes quite a good buy, and I'll tell you why I'm not on it after this, but I do want to tell you why it's a good buy. As Guns mentioned, this team is fantastic off losses, and they're also fantastic at home. But here's an interesting point statistically. They're actually 0-3 ATS last 3 at home against the NFC. Go back a couple weeks ago, you guys, I'm sure you remember this game. It was a primetime game against the New York Giants. They were absolutely useless. 0 points in the first 3 quarters before finally awakening to win the game late, 14-9. Go back to last year. 2 games they played against the NFC at home. 0-2 ATS, 1-1 straight up. And I'll remind you guys how ridiculous those games were. They lost a game to Kirk Cousins and the Vikings last year, 33-30 in overtime. They were up 27-10 in that game and had multiple turnovers in the second half, including a ridiculous fumble by Josh Allen at his own 1-yard line at the very end of the game. Slightly before that, against Green Bay, they were up 24-7 against Green Bay, and they did melt the spread at a 10.5 figure, 27-17. This is where it gets good. When you analyze statistics, you have to look at the flat result, 0-3, and say to yourself, was it really supposed to be an 0-3, or did the other side of those wagers get very situationally fortunate? That's what happened. Very fortunate for the opponent. Go back to the previous 3 games they played against the NFC at home in 2021. Full-time hammer zone. Josh Allen, like we like this dude in his element. 43-21 against Washington. Even more specifically against this division, Carolina and Atlanta. The last 2 times an NFC South opponent came up to Orchard Park. 31-14 cover, 29-15 cover. And I think that is a psychological point. Of course, that is not Baker Mayfield. That is not the Bucks. But what it is teams in the southern portion of the country traveling up to the cold weather and hostility of the crowd in Orchard Park. The only counterpoint I have to this game, and Guns and I were discussing this, we talk about this every week. Buffalo needs motivation. They need something about the opponent to jack them up, whether it's the best team in the league, a revenge game, this, and that. In my opinion, this is the last game of the entire season. They don't have insane motivation. And that might sound insane because they obviously are coming off a loss. They're 0-3 ATS last three, and they're 1-2 straight up last three. But hold your thought on that, guys. Last year in the middle of the season, between weeks 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, they actually did go 0-5 ATS. And they are able to cluster here. And the next 9 weeks, this is where it gets more motivationally transparent for them. At Cincinnati next week, Denver at home the following week. Denver is not inspirational. However, the game is on Monday Night Football, which gives it much more incentive. After that, a revenge game in the division against the Jets. Then at Kansas City, home against Dallas. Primetime Saturday night game at SoFi and the Chargers. A revenge game against New England at home, and Miami on the road. I love Buffalo. I love the spot. However, this really is the last spot on their entire calendar that is not a big-time spot. That's purely why I'm not on it. Guns mentioned this. Tampa Bay is 2-0 ATS and straight up on the road. They did hammer in the division at the Saints. That was Derek Carr coming off an injury. Not necessarily Tampa being great. Week 1 at Kirk Cousins and the boys, we did have Tampa Bay correctly in week 1 on the road, plus 5.5. Crucial point there. They won the turnover battle 3-0. And as we're having this conversation, one other point I don't love about this, Guns knows this as much as I know this. Josh Allen is turnover prone. He throws the ball into tight windows. He gets a little ahead of himself. Tampa Bay did cover that week 1 game because of a Kirk Cousins turnover cluster. If there's any quarterback in the league who's a sustained starter that is capable of that, unfortunately, it is Josh Allen. This is why I'm not on it. Just a conversation to be had. Guns picks. Any comments on the total?
I went and delved into the numbers. So this thing's set at 42.5, 43. Did get steamed up to about a point on this one, but trying to look at these two teams all together, I'm just seeing clusters on both sides. Point counterpoint, so to speak. So you got Tampa 5-1 to the under overall this season, 2-0 to the under on the road. You have Buffalo 4-3 to the over, 2-1 to the over at home, 5-2 to the under. The Bills are versus non-conference opponents dating back to 2022, 3-2 to the over. Non-conference since 2022. The Bucks are, but the Bucks are also 8-2 to the under as a road team dating back to 2022. A lot of these statistics kind of speak for one side, one to the other. If you actually look at these two teams situationally from a 2022 standpoint, Buffalo in 2022 at home versus non-conference opponents. There's two situations. This one we alluded to one of them. Shark was talking about with Minnesota. A lot of outliers and outcomes happened to that game. A big long 4th and 12, 4th down stop, and then a touchdown. So blah, blah, blah. 63 points in that game. The over was hit at 46, but they also played Green Bay at home and the total hit at 44. The under was hit at 47. And then Tampa, 2 unders in those situations versus the AFC on the road versus Pittsburgh. The total only hit 38. The under was 46. With Cleveland on this one, it went to overtime, and the game still stayed under at 40 points, and the under was 42. So a lot of these numbers kind of make me lean towards the under just statistically, but there's a point where I've just seen these two teams playing flat. Eventually, the pendulum's got to swing the other way eventually, and I don't know if it's going to be this game or the next, but I think with especially with Buffalo, the way they've played the last couple of games, they've just not played like themselves from an offensive perspective. And I think maybe this is the one that they actually break it out and start lighting them up and scoring, and then you could really lose the under altogether. So really, I have no take or no lean on both of these. This is just a wait and see. I'd rather just play the side and hopefully the Bills come out with a double-digit victory.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point. We sat here a week ago tonight, and we said the Thursday night football game was going to go over. And Ziggy Balls in the chat says primetime unders have done well. And I think everybody that's capping professional football in at least some sort of paying attention format is very aware of the primetime under situation. Guns and I both agree it's going to go the other direction, just purely based on law of averages, not because of personnel on the field tonight and every narrative you can create, just the numbers of the sport going in terms of a different direction. Again, I think we're going to say the same thing tonight. I think the over is probably the right side. And if you look at the Bucks have not scored the football at all, really, the last couple of weeks. 20-6 loss to the Lions at home, only 13 points last week. 3 weeks ago, only 11 points against the Eagles. However, they have scored a little bit more on the road, 26 at the Saints, 20 at the Vikings. The Bills, the only corollary to this season, I'll throw it back to the gun, for the Bills in this situation was a game in week 2 against the Raiders, 38-10. And I think probably the sharpness of this line tonight is indicated in that result. That game against the Raiders, the final line that I just looked up was 47.5. The score was 38-10, 48, hook finish. We love you, odds makers. You guys are unbelievable. And I think, tonight we're looking at 42.5. This game is probably looking at 43, 44, 45. Guns?
Yeah, I just want, you look at these. I'm just going to talk about the Tampa Bay side here for a second. So look at the defenses they faced so far in the last 4 weeks. They had to face Philadelphia, good defense, right? They only scored 11 points. They faced New Orleans, good defense, one of the top defenses in the league. They scored 26 on them. They actually beat them up, but they only allowed 9 versus New Orleans because New Orleans can't score points. Detroit, they had to play Detroit at home. Detroit's actually playing exceptional on the defensive side, especially with lower level teams. They only got 6 points in this one. Then Atlanta has an underrated defense as well. They only scored 13 points. If there's anything, Buffalo's defense is overrated at this point. I mean, they give up so much on the run. They're giving a lot in the pass. They are getting to the quarterback and getting sacks, but they're giving up a lot of points and a lot of yards in this one. Listen, I mean, New England put up points, 29 points on them last week, and New England couldn't score in the last 5 weeks. So you could have a back and forth in this one, and this thing could sail over. However, both these offenses have been playing really flat lately. You don't know what's going to happen on this one. It could go either way. But Shark said it. There's probably a reason why that number's sitting at 43 is that they're thinking this could be a very, very sharp total, and it could go either direction.
You know what's actually pretty interesting? This whole primetime unders thing. I think we have to zoom in a little more specifically. Primetime unders are not all created equally. Sunday Night Football and Monday Night Football are full rest. Thursday Night Football is the only short rest. Thursday Night Football actually has been an overs cluster this year. Let me just go through it briefly. Week 1, under Kansas City, Detroit, 21-20. Week 2, over 34-28, Philadelphia, Minnesota. Week 3, very close on the number. The Niners did put up 30 points on the Giants, 30-12, right on the number. Week 4, over Detroit Packers, 34-20. Week 5, over Bears, 40-20 Commanders. Week 6, total dud, Kansas City, Denver. And week 7, 31-24. The over is actually cleaning up on Thursday Night Football. You know what that tells you? It tells you one thing. Something we tell you guys every single week. Short weeks, inclement weather. Oftentimes, there are more points. It's harder to play defense when you're fatigued than it is to run an offense downhill. It's one of the biggest false narratives in football handicapping that fatigue leads to less points and weather leads to less points. Usually, fatigue and chaos actually affects the defense far, far more. Again, we think this is probably a sharp number, but just make sure you guys clarify that. Primetime unders, maybe Sunday night and Monday night with full rest on defense. Thursday night, totally different environment. Anything else on this, Guns?
No, I think you said it best there. I mean, it almost makes me want to just put like a unit on the over, but I'm not going to do it tonight. I just really, I'd rather just watch this game and hopefully the Bills cash. But yeah, I mean, you have a point. I mean, defenses are the ones that are in a disadvantage on short weeks, not the offenses. Offenses usually are, offenses never get tired, defenses do.
Game's about to kick off here, guys. If you didn't get it, get it. Georgia Southern -1. Collaboration official -2.5. The Gun, Blacksburg, Conference AFC football. And of course, not AFC, ACC football. Ahead of myself. AFC football, 8:15 in the pros. Buffalo Bills, 8.5, 9.5, 10 from the Gun. Full conversation right here, Chucky Waters Nation. Thursday night, week 8, week 9. We will be back here tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Knowledge for college. Have a great night, everybody. NBA play goes off at 10 o'clock. We're on the Suns at +6. I got plays dropping tomorrow at noon. BetUS TV. Junior Brown and I will be back here next week with NBA Payday. We are jumping off, and it is an opportunity to dominate. Guns picks. Close them out with some words, and let's go.
Yeah, make sure you like and subscribe to the Shark Waters Nation channel. Listen, we had a humongous climb. It's probably because NBA started, and we're climbing. We're well over 500 right now. We're trying to get to 1,000. The only way we can do that is because of your help. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you know every time that we can go live, and also join the chat and engage with us. We will put chats up and we will talk to you people all the time. So yeah, we're going to be back tomorrow, 7 p.m. To talk a little college football, knowledge for college. Of course, Saturday mornings with Guns will kick off, and we'll just be talking to you guys and give you some added plays as well. Going to be joined with the boys once again, Mike M. and Connor Picks from Pub Sports. So that's going to be another electric show. Bring your coffee, bring your booze, and bring your bacon, egg, and cheeses, or whatever you want to eat, your Taylor hams. That's going to be what the show is going to be about. All vibes and all picks, but also Sunday, Circa Million Show is going to be back. Listen, we've been killing the NFL, absolutely dominating. I'm hitting over 60%. I was 4-2 last week. Shark was killing it as well. And it's going to be another great show. Love this channel. Like and subscribe. And let's cash some tickets tonight. Let's enjoy college football and NFL. Full slate tonight. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bye.